take notes of your dominant style of managing your anger. And so we want to look at that, don't we? We want to examine that. We want to see if this style of managing your anger is one that you would like to keep, or would you like to edit it, or would you like to replace it with a whole entirely different strategy for dealing with your anger. And that is entirely up to you, okay? Remember, there's nobody that can impose anything on you. This is a decision that you make consciously. But you should make it within the context of looking back over your life and seeing, are you satisfied with that style? Is it working for you? And what is the impact that it's having on you, as well as those who are in relationships with you? And if there's a way for us to minimize the conflict, we're not going to eliminate the conflict, we know that. But if we can minimize or better manage the conflict, then it's to our good. And again, you try to follow me on a personal level now, okay? Because, and no looking on each other's paper, okay? Everybody keep their eyes on their own notes. All right. The first thing that you want to look at is you analyze and process, because we're going to process this style now. You want to look and see what has been the impact on the others at the end of your anger. Are they negative or are they positive? Are they, in the sense, do they work or don't they work? And put an honest answer. That style that you've been using, does it actually reduce the conflict? Does it actually reduce the conflict? And if it don't reduce the conflict, then you need to be honest about that. But you need to look at that. Okay? I want you to look and see, and those in that style that you have adopted for using that or managing your anger at others. I want you to look and see if there are, how do I put this here? Actually, I should be doing this one-on-one. So it's very hard doing this group because it's very personal. Let me see if I can find a general wording for these things. Well, let's start by looking at you. How does it impact on you? Does it do you actually get any relief? Are you actually getting any relief from the anger? Is there a covert effort at revenge going on in your style? Who else are you angry at after? Who else are you angry at after the fact? This is very key. I want you to look and see what impact it has on your mind and body. Person, I want you to see what it does to you. I want you to look at the historical origin of the style. Who are you mimicking? Who are you mimicking? to look and see how does it affect your feelings of self-respect. Does it build self-respect? Do you have self-respect enough afterward? After you get through managing your anger the way you normally manage your anger, at the end of that, do you feel a loss of self-respect? I even want you to look at who you get angry at. Now, on your list, write it down. Who are you angry at now? Who in your life are you angry at now, really? That you got some anger that you have not resolved. Because you got to deal with that, folks. Huh? Y'all need a blank sheet of paper. Huh? Need a more paper here.
Like one of those.
Huh? One of these, somebody that pass out some of these. Who are you carrying around unresolved anger against? You really got to be honest with it. Because remember, it is this anger that is currently interfering with your maximum experience of peace of mind. When you're looking at those people, please note the nature of your relationship with them. Are they a brother? Are they a sister? Are they a wife? Are they a lover? Are they what? Are they your boss? Are they your employee? Look and see.
All of my anger comes back to me.
All of it come back. So you have a boomerang effect, huh?
It's sort of because I'm mad at the other, but then in the final
Number
stages,
4.
I'm mad back with myself.
Finally,
again.
it comes back. It winds
It
up
comes
all the way
back
back
to
to
me.
you. Even if you're able to become silent, ignore, avoid, but you still angry at yourself for running and ducking and hiding from. I mean, that's not mature. That's not adult. You see, that kind of style in itself erodes your feeling of self-respect because you say to yourself, my God, I'm a grown person. Why should I be avoiding so-and-so, so-and-so?
That's because I don't know what to do. That's why I use those, because I don't know what to do. That would be effective because I don't want to do something that's not effective. It's going to put me back to square one.
Avoidance is almost obviously a style that you adopt when you don't know what to do.
Yes,
It is a
yes,
style of
absolutely.
ignorance, isn't it?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It's a style of ignorance. It means that you are withdrawing from the situation. You remember, I said that whenever we have feelings of inadequacy and lack of preparation to cope with a task at hand, we will withdraw. We will avoid that situation, right? Every time, because we really don't have the skills to manage it. And that's what you will note from all of the one we talked about before. It's a lack of skill that will cause the person to just start shouting and screaming. That's out of frustration.
Oh, they don't know either.
Confusion. They don't know either.
Okay.
You notice? All these avoidance styles are there simply because they don't know how to really do it. And these are acts of ignorance or revenge, right?
That's
Because we
an
know.
act of ignorance?
Well, I said ignorance or
Not the
revenge.
knowledge.
Oh, or revenge.
Or revenge. So you want to have a good insight into number 4 here. Who are you angry at? In the end, where does it wind up there? Right? Where does it wind up there? Okay, so I want you to spend some time with yourself tonight or tomorrow or the next couple of days, you know, just very honest. And if you can journalize and keep a running track of your responses to these primary questions, you'll get a good profile of the subconscious. You see? So I know it's a little bit work, but you deserve that much. We work so hard on so many other projects. Let us spend a little time working on ourselves. Don't we deserve this much? But you have to look at that. You want to see how that anger, how the style you manage in anger really is impacting on the other people in your life. are you alienating them from you? Are you reducing the level of intimacy in the relationships? You understand? How is it really impacting on them now? Really? You see, it is extreme you from others that love you and you love them. You really, really want to look at that. And you want to look at it in a very objective way, because remember, this has nothing to do with your value and worth as a human being. So you don't have to worry about your ego mythology now. That can all be set aside. You see, your value and worth is established. It has nothing to do with that. But you just want to look at your style. You just want to look at your style. And you see, do you really get any relief from that? After you screaming and hollering, are you really calmed down? Is it really over with, or do you just take that unresolved anger to the next room and you're still huffing and puffing about it? Or the next time you see the person, are you screaming? The anger flare up again? If your style is such that every time you see this individual, your anger emerges, that means you have not done something effectively, right? And that can be very painful when this is a person, one of those others that you can't get away from. It may be your child. It may be someone that boss or something. What can you do? Why are you smiling, huh?
What if it's just an individual that provokes anger within you? I mean, you can only take so much.
Yeah.
And if it's like a perpetual thing for years and years and years,
Yeah.
what do you do but isolate yourself from it?
Yeah.
How else can you handle it?
Well, that's what we're here to find out. There are other ways to handle that. Obviously, isolation is not working because it keeps provoking you year after year, so that you're not able to isolate
Yeah,
yourself.
but as long as you stay away from it.
But he keeps coming. He or she keeps coming back. That's
But
the problem.
It's not like prolonging it. It's like, say for instance, it's a sister or brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they bring this
Yeah.
into the arena, the atmosphere, whatever,
I know what you
whatever
mean.
quarters you're in.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, you can be silent.
Yeah.
You can ignore.
Well, you have to manage your anger. The key is your anger, right?
Well,
So you got to find out now how I'm gonna give myself some relief from this feeling. Now, do I edit this girl or this brother or sister? Do I knock them out? What? You can't fix it on their side. You can only fix it on your side.
okay.
So the
but I'm
question
not
becomes-
angry though. I mean,
We're only talking about your anger, though.
oh, I'm not
All right?
angry because you know it seems to me that it's not going to end on.
Now, here's the
their
thing. When we
end.
say that they provoke it, the anger is lying potentially. Otherwise, it can't be provoked.
Okay.
You see my point?
Okay.
We fail to understand that. You know, when it looks like somebody's creating anger in you, it's already there, and they're just perhaps it's a triggering phenomenon that you release it, but it's there. If you have no anger in you, no one can make you angry. Anger is your perception. It's a fully subjective thing, right? And we all know that from experience. If somebody's done something to me and I perceived it as a threat to my well-being, I build up the anger. The person need not even be here. It could be some hearsay. Somebody give you a message that so-and-so was over there telling saying so-and-so about you last week, right? Now the gossip line brings that down to me, right? I processed that, right? Now the anger is already, now the event took place last week over on the other side of town somewhere, right? I wasn't even present, but it's come through to me now, right? Now, the moment I hear that news, the anger is there. Now, 2 weeks later, I see so-and-so. Guess what's going to happen? Even if so-and-so says, hello, Bhagwan, how are you? What is going to be my response? Man, I heard you. I'm gone, right? Because you have to understand, the anger was there. He wasn't even around. Long distance. Yes.
Okay, let's take that situation
Yes.
further. You confront so-and-so.
Yes.
So-and-so ain't giving you no relief.
Right, but who has to give yourself relief from that?
How are you going to give
You.
yourself some relief?
All right, that's the whole point. Now you're thinking. That's what we've been spending a whole session and a half on
Because you
dealing
can't
with.
depend on the other.
Right, that's why I'm telling you. You have to find ways to manage your own anger. Managing your anger means giving yourself some relief from your own anger.
Talk to me.
Right? And that's what we've been talking about. What is some of the style we said? Forgive them. Right? And you gave who some relief?
Yourself.
Right. You have to keep your focus on you. You see, it's hard.
Okay.
I tell you that this is very difficult because we've all been so conditioned to blame the other.
And lash out at them.
You make me angry.
Right.
But if you didn't make me angry, I would be blissful. Right? The problem is always for us, the other. Right? The other is hell, as the poet says. But the reality is that you are responsible for the creation and the maintenance of your own state of peace. And think about it. Why would you leave something as important as your peace of mind in the hands of another person? Why would you even want to do that? That is suicidal. You see.
It's
So,
easy to get into that. It's hard to stay out of
It's
those
hard to stay out of it.
elements.
That's why I said we're going to have to catch ourselves because all of us in here brings a certain childhood conditioning to the adult task of life. None of us in here probably have been adequately and completely and fully prepared to deal with the task of life. Does it mean we had bad parents? No. They themselves were imperfect. They had shortcomings. They had faults. And some of their shortcomings, some of their imperfection, some of their faults were bound to have been incorporated in their parenting style and has been, instrumental in shaping us. So, our task as adults now is to go back and sort of reprogram ourselves to edit out those tendencies and attitudes that we have that is predisposing us to have so much of this misery. So the emphasis is on us now, and we have to stay with that because immediately, again and again, your mind will again throw you back. Your ego mythology will look for somebody else to blame, right? You're looking somewhere else to blame. And we have to understand this is my anger. I'm the one. It's my discomfort, my misery, and how do I minister emotional first aid to myself? It has nothing to do with this other person. You see? So I'm the one. Right? How do I reduce my vulnerability to going into this state of anger? And one of the things that you have to do then is you got to reshape a lot of your attitudes. You see? You have to understand the role and relationship that your own attitudes play in your experience of anger. And as you're looking at your dominant style, I want you to keep this kind of material in mind. Your attitudes. What role, what attitude is part of the dynamics of your going into a state of anger? What usually happens is that one of your attitudes get violated, don't it? Right? When someone violates one of your attitudes, it triggers anger. Right? What are some of the attitudes that trigger anger in general? And specifically, what attitudes, when violated, trigger anger in you?
Well, first of all, let's talk about attitude. Like
Let's talk
you
about
said,
attitude.
Sunday. So, attitude really is a perception of an event that has not occurred. So
It
you're
is.
wrong to start off with.
It's a predisposition. It's a predisposition to behave almost a priori in a certain way. It's almost like you say, you've already decided what you're going to do.
Is it a program?
Yes, almost attitudes function like program. Your attitudes are your program.
Yes.
That's your hardware, you call it in the business.
Yep.
Your attitudes
What you
is your
got.
hardware. And almost all your attitudes came from your what? Childhood. You develop and form your attitudes toward life, toward yourself, and toward others, probably before the age of 7, and haven't changed since. Now, how correct could you have been as a 7-year-old kid? Right? So, you have to look and see what are some of the attitudes that trigger the experience of anger in us in general and specifically in you. Now, did we talk about attitudes yet? Oh, we talked about them as soft songs. I talk so much, people, I don't know where I say these things. So maybe we should say it for the benefit of those who are not in soft songs. Just a little bit. We won't go reproduce it all because that's available. Probably on some tape or something. You can look at it. But one of the things we say that whenever you have the feelings that you've been treated unfairly, a sense of that some kind of injustice has taken place, can and usually triggers your anger. Now, what is it that determines, that helps you conclude whether this is the case or not? It's going to be an attitude, right? It's an attitude. Your attitudes really determine what you call unfair versus what is fair. It's your attitude.
And at 7, you self-centered.
Very much so. And even at 70, you can remain self-centered unless something has taken place that has evolved you out of your childhood emotionality and psychology. Remember I said that there's a certain kind of emotional psychological state that travels with each chronological stage of development. There is an emotionality and psychology that goes with childhood, one that goes with adolescence, one that goes with adulthood, one that goes with personhood, and one that goes with godhood. Okay? And they're very different, and they have very different dynamics. The tragedy is that most of us remain locked into the childhood stage of emotional and psychological development. Few get into the adolescence. Almost nobody makes it to adulthood. Few people to personhood, and you know how many men and women you can count them on your finger that attain godhood. God will be God will set you. So in any case, whenever you have any experience that something or someone, some circumstance is unfairly related to you, it triggers your anger. A second attitude that you have, and this is a big one, sometimes, as you pointed out, as children we're very egocentric, right? And that means that we usually want to always get our way, right? So whenever you can't get your way,
Don't get mad.
okay, you get angry. And the attitude that causes that is the wrong conclusion that you should get your way in every circumstance and situation. And that's a direct carryover from your childhood somewhere when you were egocentric and when you really thought that. And we carry that into adulthood. Now we can rationalize it and cover it up and dress it up in words, but fundamentally, when you can't get your way or get other people to do things your way, it makes you angry. And that's unrealistic. And as long as this attitude dominates, you're going to be angry every 10 seconds of your life. You're going to fall into a chronic state of anger, aren't you? So you got to look and see what attitudes do you have that is contributing to the eruption of this anger. So you have to go into it very thoroughly. Very thoroughly. And these are just a few, you see. Whenever you feel powerless to control a situation. Whenever you feel powerless and out of control of a situation or person, you get angry. You get angry. You can't control your wife. You can't make her do what you want her to do. Now you get angry. The attitude is that people should do what I tell them. Where did that attitude come from? When you were 3 or 4 years old somewhere, and you have brought it all the way up here into your adult life. And now you are trying to base your relationship with adult human beings on the attitudes of a child. And it's going to fail. And and it's going to feel.
But isn't sometimes it's legitimate when you look at the question of racism? I mean, there have been some atrocities done against black people, I mean, that are real and grounded in
Yes.
fact, and they continue.
Yes.
And will correct that and still continue.
Of course. I mean, I didn't say that the problem is not anger. The problem is the mismanagement of anger. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there are not legitimate bases for you being angry sometimes. That's not the issue. The issue is how you manage that. Now, when it is the case that black people have been subjected to, historically, for hundreds of years of events and circumstances that give us perhaps a very unquestionably legitimate basis for our anger and our grievance. But if we mismanage that anger and turn on each other and commit genocide, that is a mismanagement of an energy that could have been used for revolution or overthrowing or rectifying the situation. So all our energy that would be necessary to collectively join in order to bring about a radical shift in our situation is being displaced in the form of black on black crime. Same energy. Same exact energy. We don't know how to manage it. So you're absolutely right. Your point is well taken. And you must remember that the thing that is unique about what I'm telling you is that the problem is not anger. Anger has a positive function. The energy, that is, can be used in a way that benefits you. It could be used in a way that does not benefit you. The problem is how to manage it appropriately. So you're very, very right.
Yeah, because especially with the issue of powerlessness.
Especially with the issue of
Like
powerlessness.
pathology in the black community.
Of course.
It's so deeply rooted in all the problems that we have as a people.
Yes. A lot of them, but I wouldn't say all, but it almost feels like we could say all, can't we? Can be this powerlessness, this inability to control our fate. Because why? We don't control any of the social institutions that are so vital to our survival. We don't control jurisprudence, the law. We don't control any of the military. We don't control none of that. We don't have health, politics, health, education, so forth and so on. None of the institutions that make up a society fall under the control of black people at all. I mean, really, powerlessness, big time. And this deep felt sense of powerlessness, first of all, we're angry about it. Second of all, we are overcompensating for the sense of inferiority that comes from that. Is that right? When you are powerless and that don't feel good and you feeling inferior and you feeling worthless and you're going to try to do something to overcompensate for that feeling, aren't you? So what is going to happen is that you're going to become a kind of caricature. You're going to become exaggerated in some dimension. And don't we see a lot of brothers and sisters who have exaggerated themselves? They're exaggerations. They are lawyers without degree. But you can never tell that looking at them. He's brother down, briefcase down. Looks like Wall Street. But it's not Wall Street. Again, trying to look powerful, to compensate for the fact that you have no power. Right? And the energy that is expended in this process of overcompensating is the very energy that is necessary to really produce power. Right? So you're right. I mean, you can begin to see the collective dynamics of our individual problem. If none of us in here know how to manage our anger correctly, now that means that as we move through the mutual dimensions that we must move through as people in the same group, we're going to be in conflict. We're not going to be able to have any unity. How can you have unity? You can't have unity with a person that you're angry at. How can you have trust? You can't. So forth and so on. So you're absolutely right. And these are the kind of things that we really have to understand. Our revolutions have failed in the past because they were outward directed. The revolution has to be inward directed. It proceeded from the wrong part. It has to come from within out, not from the outside in. Because if you've got 30 million people who are all angry at each other, then whom is going to do the revoting? Who will do the overthrowing? If we're angry, there's not going to be any unity. There's not going to be any trust. There's not going to be any cooperation. All of these things require a reduction in conflict. It requires the resolution of our conflict. You see my point? So you're absolutely right. And that makes us angry. Now, we're all angry for being powerless and out of control, even at a social level. The question is, what do we do with that anger? We displace it. Don't we? Now, you're angry at your perception of Clarence Thomas, because you said, Clarence Thomas, won't you do something about this? Clarence Thomas angry at you because he said, why don't you do something? Now, while each one is accusing each other of not doing anything, guess what? Nothing is being done. And that's the story. That is displaced anger. And we have to learn how to do it. So all of us get angry then whenever we are having the experience of being powerless and out of control of the situation. And why is that so frightening? Because we lose our sense of freedom. The experience of freedom is taken away. And you will always hate whatever or whomever circumvents your sense of freedom. Because freedom is one of the strongest psychological needs that we all have. I know that in personal relationships, very often what happens, especially in an intimate relationship, husband and wife, whatever, because very often what happens is both experience a loss of freedom. And that is unforgivable. And the wife is perceived as being your enemy because this woman is constantly restricting your freedom, right? What time, where you going? You can't go with your friends. Don't go there. Come here. Stay. You understand? And most men have a hard time adjusting to that. That's one of their biggest problems. They have a hard time adjusting to the restriction on their freedom. It's not that they have a hard time giving you money. The hard time is the reduction on freedom. And then the poor woman, she feels that, my God, she don't have no freedom. The man is taking it from her because he's pushed all of the responsibilities on her. She don't have no time to do nothing she wants because this man has abdicated so much of his responsibility that I'm not freed up to do nothing. So again, it's that loss of freedom on both sides. And that lies at the bottom, very often, of the conflict in the relationship. So once you get these things down, once you understand these principles, these dynamics that are going on, you're going to get a lot of insight. Not only into yourself, but into every other human being who you come in contact with. So the question is, what role do your own attitudes about life, about yourself, and about others, what role do these attitudes play in your own frequency and degree of anger that you experience? You got to know that. You got to answer that question. That's self-knowledge. You have to know that. You have to know that. What was number 4 on your list? I wiped off my board here. We were looking at these effects.
Who else are you angry at?
Yes, well that's what we were talking about, number 4.
Who else are you angry at afterwards?
Right. We were dealing with that. Now, what was number 5?
What impact it has on your mind?
Right. Look and see your style. What impact? After you get through expressing your anger along your dominant style, what impact has that stuff had on you? What impact does it have? Look at it. Are you ready to go take a drink afterwards? Right? Do you need some ice cream to wash down the agony of what is the effect? Know it personally. Know it personally. What impact does this thing have? Because we're trying to evaluate it. What was number 6?
Look at the historical origin of style.
Very, very, very important. Look at the historical origin of the style. Look at the historical origin of your style that you have adopted for managing your anger. And while you're at it, look at it across the whole board. Look at it, the style for your greed, your lust. Look at all of it. Now, again, this is a lot of work. This is going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work. But it's worth it. Do it, and you will never be the same. I guarantee you that. Never be the same. Never be the same. But you want to know these things about yourself. What was number 7?
How does it affect your feelings of self-respect? Does it have your,
You feel lost of self-respect.
Yes, how it impacted your self-respect. Take it up, take it down, right?
right?
If you are a screamer and you get angry at your son, and then you scream at your son, scared him to death, right? How you feel after that? About yourself. You feel that you say you feel good. That you dig the energy out, right? And the boy is angry, and the boy is scared of you now. You'll scream this boy into a state of fear. Right? Right? And somebody else comes in the room now, and your son immediately runs to them. Right? And they're wondering, what kind of mother is this? Right? How you feel about that? Right? How you feel? You feel good about that? You feel you're making progress now? You're screaming, and your husband say something to you, and you explode all over the man. Now, how you feel? Again, of course, the initial feeling is good, I'm sure. Right? But after the fact, you know me, acting all up like that, getting way angrier than you needed to be. People that tend to have this style usually overreact. They find themselves getting way more angry than the situation actually calls.
So there's the other side. When
Hmm?
you avoiding, when you finally call yourself deal with that, you are still going to overreact.
You're still going to overreact. That's because why? Because the stuff been accumulated now. We talked about the cumulative effect of suppressed anger, right? That it accumulates. It's not going nowhere.
Right.
You explode, right? But you want to look and see, how does this impact on your self-respect? How do you see yourself in your own eyes when you are use this technique to manage your anger? What conclusion did you come to about
It makes
yourself?
you shame because you know you could have did better, but you
But
can't
handled it
control
better.
yourself well enough at the time of the incident.
Absolutely. You
To
feel
keep yourself
shame for being out
of
of
control.
control. And you're ashamed of that.
Yeah, you don't like that about yourself.
You don't like that about yourself. And that's really hard now to play back to the public. It's when you come time now for you to put your reputation back on the street. Because you've been seeing and thinking that you have all this patience and stuff, right? And now it is clear you have no patience at all, right? And you are totally out of control. And you shame. It shames you, don't it? And shame, we know, does not elevate self-respect. It's the opposite. Right? It's the opposite. So you want to look at that. I think we had one more, number 8. What was that?
Who are you angry with?
That's number 8.
Who are you
Angry
getting
at
angry
no.
at?
We're looking at the groups of people, right? Well, that may be your whole little life. You may find that everybody that is a part of your circle, you may be having some anger stuff with. I don't know. Look and see.
What if
Are
you're
you
angry?
fighting with everybody? If you're not angry at anybody? But that's great if you're not angry at anybody. But if you're angry at everybody and you're suppressing that and you caught up in some ego mythology somewhere where you are so out of touch with reality going on around you, you're in trouble.
I'm so
Big trouble.
perfect that they just
Right.
don't get it.
Right. You're in super trouble. Right? You're in super trouble. See, when the anger goes beyond suppression, and Linda is raising a very good issue. What happens when you push the anger deeper into you, even beyond the level of of suppression. That is what we call repression. Which means now it drops completely out of the reach of consciousness.
Anything can happen.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's the distinction between suppressed and repressed. Suppressed, you still know it's there. There's an undercurrent. You can feel it. You know you're angry. You can feel it. You're trying to hold it in. Fist a ball, jaws are tight. But you are conscious that you are angry. When you have suppressed it, pushed it down in yourself, out of the reach of your own awareness, then by definition we call it repression. Now here's the danger. And this is why psychologists and psychiatrists talk so much about the dangers of repressed material. When it hits down here, it means that it's now no longer under your conscious control at all. Because consciousness is up here. Conscience can control it as long as it's suppressed. I mean, you can suppress. That's what suppress means. You're still able, the ego is still able to exert its will on the suppressed material. But when that material gets pushed further down into the psyche, the ego loses its capacity to impose its will on it. And the thing takes on a life of its own. And now you are doing stuff and you have to ask yourself, I don't even know why I did that. You're right, you don't. You really don't. You're not even yourself. I wasn't even myself. That would totally unlike. You're right. If your ego could have prevented the behavior, it would have. But the reality is that your ego could not even get nowhere close to getting any influence on the behavior. And the behavior takes on a life of its own. It is really profound. It is really profound.
Is that what happens in people like Eve with the personality?
Splits all up because it looks like an entirely different person. Each time some come down here, and let's say if it forms a complex. A complex is just a collection of similar stuff, material, right? And it begins to form, right? And after it reaches a certain mass, the complex, it very often display itself in that person's life as if it had no psychic connection to the individual. You actually really start feeling that there's 5 or 6 people inside of you. You really do. All distinct and separate. And those, you see. And the real amazing thing is that your ego cannot control personality number 2. When it comes up and it go out and kill, okay, what can you? It kills and it goes back down. And then you're trying to figure out how that happened. You don't even know. It gets very profound. So this repression is very deep. And that's one of the things that meditation aims at. That's the whole function of spiritual training and spiritual cultivation, is to increase one's self-awareness so high, to make it so intense that nothing can fall down and become repressed. That's the whole point. That everything in you remains within the scope of your awareness. Right? As long as it remains within the scope of your awareness, then it can be mastered and controlled. But the moment it drops down, the possibility of mastery and control drops out of the picture altogether. So Linda has raised a very profound insight. There are people who can have the experience that I have no greed, I'm not greedy. They really don't feel any greed. The people that is life is being wrecked by lust, but they will have no experience that they have any problem with lust. Same with ego. They will have no experience that they have any ego. No anger. And no attachments. And they are self-deceived.
So Bhagwan, when it gets to the level of depression, since the ego cannot process it, cannot touch it, so does the person internalize it and turn on themselves when it's at that point?
It could be many things. They can turn it in on themselves. Let's say, for instance, if you have suppressed your feelings of guilt, right? You suppressed it, right? Because there's been too much conflict with your ego mythology. You just can't have that. because guilt usually occurs whenever you have the sense that you've done something wrong, stupid, or beneath your standard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if that offends your ego mythology too much, you tend to suppress your guilt. First you say, I'm not my fault, not my fault, not my fault, not my fault, not my fault. And you repeat that mantra so long, right, that now you lose your capacity to feel any guilt, right? So you're taking care of the guilt, but it's been repressed now, right? So now this person may start out of this repressed guilt, may allow themselves to be abused in their personal relationship. They swallow the abuse as punishment. And it's going on at a level they don't even know about. It's going on at a level that they don't even know about, right? That's all. Or they may start beating themselves, cutting themselves, right? And they don't know why they just hurt themselves. You see? Whenever they get angry, they hurt themselves. Some people, have you noticed, will hurt themselves when they're angry as an act of revenge. Let me give you a simple example. Here is your mother's heirloom that she passed down to you as her only daughter. Beautiful china or something. And you get angry at me, and you pick up this heirloom and you hurl it at my head. I duck, thank God. It smashes against the wall, right? And then you blame me for making you understand? Break your mother's heirloom. You got me? Now some people just take it too far, right? Children sometimes, when they get angry at you, they'll hurt themselves, bang their head against the wall, start beating themselves, right? Because they're trying to get revenge. A lot of that, again, when stuff gets down there, it becomes very dangerous. And yet, this is exactly the valley, the abyss that meditation takes you into. It makes you conscious of that which has been repressed. And that's why they say, when you do meditation, when you study meditation, you better study under the guidance and tutelage of a master. The possibilities is that you will lose your mental balance, because sometimes, quite frankly, you can't handle the stuff that you have put in the basement of your being. You're going to be shocked when you go into your closets to see what you've been putting there. Right? All kinds of things, incestuous impulses, all kinds of things are buried down there that you don't even know about no more. Things that shame you so bad that you push them all the way out of your conscious ability to recall. Things that have traumatized you, that were so painful that just thinking about them hurts. You practice ignoring it so long. Sister Kiva, you can ignore the thing down into the repressed part of your consciousness. Oh, now there's no possibility of this master. And every possibility that it would master you. So you have to, the only way, Linda, then, that we can say whether or not we have or don't have is to complete a course in meditation and go down and see. After we go down into the basement of our being, turn on our lights and look around, then we can say, well, I don't have any anger. I don't have any greed. But why? I've looked. But if you have not looked, you'll never know. Does this make sense to you?
Oh, yes.
I know it's sometimes it gets a bit complicated here. But then again, it has been called high knowledge for that reason. Right? And so that was number 8 then, right? Okay. Now, I want you to look. I'm giving you all so much work, but I warned you, right? I want you to look at step number 9. We talked earlier about this here. I want you to see how your own the fact that you personalize some behavior of the other person. Remember we talking about your anger at others, right? And if you have personalized the comments or behavior of another person towards you, if you have personalized it and taken it as a reflection on your own worth and value, and therefore have been made to feel worthless. You remember we found that whenever you are having the experience of anger at another person, and when we peel that anger down, it usually comes with a feeling of worthlessness. You remember that? Emma got angry at the guy that came into the office. We killed it down. We found that he kind of made her feel worthless. Right? That meant that in order for her to feel worthless, she had to have personalized attention. Right? You took it personal. Right? And that taking it personal is what caused the pain and the agony of this whole experience. Right? So you're going to have to look and see to what extent you are already predisposed to take others, people, behavior, comments, etc. so personal. Have to look at that much. So again, remember I said at the beginning of this thing, and for those of you who wasn't there, I'm sure this sounds like madness, but again, check with the people that have to know. You have to now start working on this, not taking this stuff personal. Because remember, when you were handling the others' anger at you, the key to handling other people's anger at you was not taking it personal. Not taking it personal is the same key to managing your anger at others. Do you get me? Are you with me on that? Do you see how that works? All right. The key to managing other people's anger at you is to not take it personal, right? Their anger at you. It may consist of their criticism, complaints, blah, 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 blah. If you take it personal, you're not going to even bother to manage their anger because you're going to become angry on them. So we saw that it was the actual taking of the other person's behavior personal, even though they're angry, but you taking their thing personal, that triggers your anger. So now we got two angry people, we have to simply escalate the conflict. Similarly, if you don't take so much personal, then you automatically reduce who you get angry at.
Okay.
You got me?
Yes.
All right. By depersonalizing. When you depersonalize, when you got that, you're going to find the first benefit is that you yourself will have fewer episodes in a much lower degree of anger with other people because you're not taking it personal. You got me? It's very important you have to get this. It's difficult, I grant you that.
And you're saying not taking it personal, not taking it seriously, because that's different. If
Yeah,
somebody's
it's very
really
different.
mad, they are serious.
Yeah, when you're angry, but I'm saying when you look at, we're going into the actual epiphenomena now, right? We're going inside of the phenomena. And when you, because anger is your perception, isn't it? Right? And it's usually personal, isn't it? Right? Now, if you can have perception out of a depersonalized state, right, you're going to filter out a lot of the anger that you're going to experience because the perception is flowing through a depersonalized state. What if your perception is flowing through a matrix of filled with, from top to bottom, with a lot of all this ego mythology?
You're going to get really mad.
Bet your last dollar, right? And that's usually what happened, right? We perceive and orientate ourselves through this matrix of ego mythology. You getting smart with me, boy? Right? That all came through your ego mythology, that whole conclusion. Now you're angry because your son is looked like he getting smart with you, disrespecting me. I knocked you out. Right? That whole little episode flows through this ego mythology. Right? So you're right. You can maintain its seriousness, right? But it's not personal. And you're able to manage. You're able to actually avoid a lot of instances of false-based anger. A lot of your anger is falsely triggered. There was no need for you to get angry in the first place. Because when nobody trying to hurt you, nobody trying to dish your little, well, nobody even messing with your mythology. You see what I'm saying? You just thought, right? Yeah, nobody even was interested in your little reputation, right? But you thought they were, and you overreacted out of that perception, didn't you? And you got angry and did all that stuff and attacked, and there was never even any necessity for it at all. And that is one of the benefits of, the depersonalization process, right? And so you want to look and see what role your inability to depersonalize is playing. Now we're not going to I don't expect you to process all of this by the next workshop. But I want you to start getting ready. I want you to start getting ready so that we can start talking at deeper levels, okay? Because as we go along, this stuff starts getting very, very deep. It has no option but to get deep because we're now examining the knowledge that has been floating on the planet since time immemorial. You see, so your intellects and all that got to get real, real, real sharp. Otherwise, you're gonna miss. You're missing. All right. Oh my God, time is up. All right, we'll end there. We'll save next session. We'll take any questions that you may have about this, and then we will go looking at category number 3, which will be anger at the self. Anger at yourself. We'll do that next time. We'll be getting there. Any questions, comments, last thoughts? Are you getting something? Are you getting something here? I want you to do. I'd like you to do a homework though for next time. I want you to, the next time you have an opportunity to be angry, maybe we can help each other out here, right? But seriously, the next time you run into an opportunity where you feel yourself getting angry, I want you to try to use one of the techniques we talked about, and just see what happens. You know, instead of screaming, tell the person, right? Or if somebody get angry at you, validate. Let's see what happens. I want you to see whether this stuff has any value or not. I don't want you taking my word on nothing, okay? I want you to adopt these strategies only based on your own conviction and first-hand experience, okay? It should have nothing to do with what I say. And the only way that you can have that level of conviction is you got to implement it, right? So I can guarantee you between now and next week this time, you're going to have somebody to get angry at you, or you're going to get angry at somebody. And those will be 2 occasions for you to use a different strategy, hopefully one of the strategies that we've talked about. And I want you to test this stuff, all right? Because the proof is in the testing, right? Otherwise, it simply remains at the level of philosophy. And that's not the objective. All right, see you next Saturday.